All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope all of you guys had an incredible week. We have a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to be hitting 2 instant reactions from last night's games. The Oklahoma City Thunder got a win over the red-hot Los Angeles Clippers, albeit without Kawhi Leonard. And then the Milwaukee Bucks beat the Orlando Magic at home in an interesting game. After that, we're going to do our weekly MVP ladder, like we're going to start doing on every Friday from now on. And then, last but not least, at the end of the show, we have a long mailbag. We're going to be hitting like 8 questions. We're going to be bouncing all over the league, hitting a bunch of stuff in that segment. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. It'd mean a lot to me if you guys would take a second to scroll down, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget about our podcast feeds, wherever you get your podcasts, under Hoops Tonight. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements or the film threads that I do from time to time. And then last but not least, keep dropping mailbag questions in the YouTube comments so we can keep hitting them throughout the season. All right, let's talk some basketball. So the Thunder pretty much controlled this game against the Clippers. There was a brief stretch there in the early third quarter where James Harden hit a couple step back threes in a row and the Clippers ended up going up by 1. But the Thunder just immediately regained control of the game, and they were up by double digits like that after that. And honestly, like, there was just this, I've talked a lot about this concept on the show. I view the perimeter defense battle, like the ability to contain dribble penetration on one end and then to generate dribble penetration on the other end. I look at that as like the push and pull that you see in basketball that most closely resembles what happens in football in terms of line play between the offensive line and the defensive line. Like if a team gets excellent push on the offensive line, and then when they're on defense, if they can get penetration into the backfield, that goes a long way towards making the game easier for every other position group, right? And that's kind of the way I feel about perimeter defense in basketball. And this battle, especially with Kawhi out, I would have loved to have seen Kawhi in this matchup, because one of the best counters for a team that's got really good, quick perimeter defenders is to have a guy that can generate dribble penetration without necessarily having to beat people off the dribble, meaning like the ability to back a guy down into the post. Another thing with Kawhi too is, dribble penetration gaps are easier to shoot through when you have strength. So for instance, like if I make a move and I get my defender to just barely buckle, but I have a strength advantage, I can shoot through that gap with physicality. Whereas if I don't have a strength advantage and I get the defender to buckle just a tiny bit, he can use physicality to regain control of that situation and vice versa, right? So Kawhi just would have been an interesting kind of wrinkle to throw into this matchup, but the Thunder just generally controlled that perimeter defense matchup, which just that perimeter defense battle, I should say, which led to them getting higher quality shots and them winning. But I want to zoom in on the Thunder side of things on Chet Holmgren for a little bit here, because I thought this was one of his more impressive games as a pro, just from the standpoint of how much they leaned on him to start plays rather than to finish plays. And, Zubac is a good center who I think does a lot of things really well in a traditional sense, in traditional coverages and, doing a lot of the things that you need a traditional center to do from the standpoint of play finishing, right? But Chet kind of represents in a lot of ways what a modern center is going to look like if we fast forward 20, 30 years, in my opinion. And that's like basically a really tall wing, that can dribble, shoot, and pass with the best of them. And, one of the things that the Thunder realized pretty quickly in this game is like, why would we attack Terrence Mann and Russell Westbrook and Paul George and Norman Powell and all these superior athletes and Amir Coffey and stuff on the perimeter when we have a clear matchup advantage here, which is that Ivica Zubac just has no chance to guard Chet Holmgren on an island, and that's not a shot at Zubac. It's just a reality of what kind of matchup Chet can create. And like, he was just attacking in space, just like they, kind of all space out to the perimeter and give Chet the ball, and he would just make a dribble move and beat Zubac off the dribble. There's this crazy one where he had just beat Zubac to the right side and finished on the right side of the basket in the early third quarter. And then they cleared out the right side for him, and he dribbled left and like faked like he was going to shoot a pull-up jump shot. Zubac jumped, and then he just threw it up off the glass, and he went up and dunked it with 2 hands. And so one of the things the Clippers did is they put Russell Westbrook on him. And they're basically like, this guy's beating everybody off the dribble. Let's go small and let's just bother his base, right? That's a big thing that I talk about a lot on this show. When you're a defensive player and you don't have a size advantage, you have to attack the base. You can never hope to bother a guy like that up top because that's where his advantage is in his height, right? And so if I can disrupt the base, like push on their legs or their hips to make it so that when they jump, they don't get the same amount of energy transfer, or to swipe at the dribble pocket or the shooting pocket, like as they're gathering the ball to try to disrupt that flow up to the top of the shot, that's your best way to do it, right? And so one of the things that they did I thought was interesting is they had Chet set a screen on the ball, get Russ switched off of him. There's a play where he isolates Terrence Mann at the top of the key in a triple threat. And again, like Terrence Mann, super quick athlete, right? You expect him to beat Chet to spots. Chet straight up ripped through and beat Terrence Mann to the right. And then Terrence Mann recovered because he's got great speed, gets back in front of Chet, but Chet was able to get close enough to the rim for him to kind of slow himself down and shoot like an easy bank shot over the top. And we're up to 68 self-creation possessions for Chet at this point in the season. Now that I'm counting as any pick and roll, ISO, or post up, including passes. Basically, if Chet is initiating the action in a half-court set. And out of those 68 possessions, the Thunder have scored 75 points, which is 1.1 points per possession, which is astounding under any circumstances, let alone for a rookie. I think Chet has a superstar, top-tier superstar potential. I'm super, super excited to cover this kid in his career and see what he's capable of. I thought he was amazing last night against the Clippers. All I want for the holidays this year is some NBA action. This week, new customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets just for betting $5. An instant dub just for you guys. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code HOOPS. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on basketball. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code HOOPS. The crown is yours. eBay Motors is here for the ride. Getting car parts can be a huge pain. I had a wild experience last year where I busted the side view mirror on my truck. And I thought, this is a problem I can solve, right? So I went online and I found a website that sold car parts, and I found this mirror that looked identical to the one I had. I ordered it, it shipped. I got on YouTube and I looked up how to disassemble my door and attach the mirror properly. Go through all the steps. Everything's perfect. Problem solved, right? No, because I wake up the next day and I get in my car to go to the gym and literally the air conditioner is not working. And I live in Tucson, Arizona, so it's like a catastrophe when your AC is not working because it's like you're driving around in an oven, right? So I stop everything and I take it to the dealership. I pay a super expensive diagnostic fee for them to figure out what's going on. The guy comes back to me and he's like, "You got the wrong mirror on your truck. The mirror you're supposed to have is supposed to have like this little thermometer on it, which is supposed to tell the computer of the truck like whether or not it can afford to run the AC without overheating, some super complicated thing like that." By the time I actually got the right mirror on, I'd spent over $1,000 to get my perfectly normal air conditioner to start working again. And eBay Motors is here to make that problem go away. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, side mirrors, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Moving on to the Bucks and the Magic. So it's interesting because down the stretch of this game is reasonably close, and the Bucks won the game down the stretch, executing on offense. And they were spamming a lot of Dame Giannis pick and roll, which was funny because that's not how they won the game. They won the game with a couple of different types of offensive possessions. There was a late clock situation where Dame took a step back three over Gary Harris and drew a foul. And got to that Dame is very, very good at drawing fouls. Gets to the foul line, generates 3 points that way. There was a baseline out of bounds play where they had, if I remember correctly, Brook Lopez set a back screen for Pat Connaughton, and Wendell Carter Jr. it was Giannis. Giannis set a back screen for Pat Connaughton, and Wendell Carter Jr., even though Giannis can't shoot, was like just not paying attention to the basket and just let Pat get right behind him. He laid it in, and then there was a cross screen action they ran for Giannis that I actually really liked to help him get a deep post catch on the left block, and he just went to like a little right-handed hook shot over the top. But they did run a ton of Dame Giannis pick and roll. And I'm glad, just because, some of the sloppy stuff that happened is stuff that they're going to be able to figure out in the long run. And they got some really good looks out of it. So first one they ran down the stretch, Giannis they ran it on a cleared side on the right side, and Giannis ended up getting basically a wide open dunk, and he just missed it, which, like, how often do you see Giannis miss basically an uncontested dunk, right? So that was the first one. Quality possession, just didn't result in points. There's another one they ran where they dug over with the low man, and Dame had a skip pass to the left corner, and instead of throwing the pass, he tried to force it into Giannis, and it led to a turnover. And then after that, Dame made the read. They ran it on the opposite side of the floor from the left side moving towards the right, and Dame identified that they were coming over to take away that drop-off pass to Giannis, and he made a skip to Malik Beasley in the right wing, and Malik Beasley was able to pump fake, rip, and make a little floater off the glass. And a couple of different things there you're seeing. First of all, those second two that I just mentioned, they didn't clear the side. I think clearing the side opens up that pocket pass, makes it harder to help on the pocket pass. Think of it like this. If I'm setting up on the left wing and I've got shooter right corner, right wing, and right elbow extended, so that's where all the shooting is, and I have Giannis come and set the ball screen on my right-hand side while I have the left side of the floor cleared, as I come off to the right, if that pick and roll defender shows in any way and Giannis rolls to the open space on the left side of the floor, there's just so much room for him to go to work there. And the only way they can get there and help in time is if they zone up, meaning they bring that defender all the way to the strong side of the floor, which opens up a whole other list of issues for your defense, right? And I did think it was interesting that when they ran it with an occupied corner, it was easier for that guy to get involved with disrupting that pocket pass. And but even with that being the case, when they do run it in the middle of the floor and there is a shooter in both corners, that's where making that skip pass is an important read for Dame, because one, you've done your job. You've created a closeout opportunity. Two, Malik Beasley's shooting the shit out of the basketball, so dudes are going to chase him off the line. And three, like, that just gets the defense in rotation, and from there you've got enough ball handling and shooting on the floor to make good plays out of it. But again, where we are right now is not quite where the Dame Giannis pick and roll needs to be to win the title, but I love that they're spamming it. I love that they're trying to build that chemistry, because that's the action that's going to get you the trophy one day if you could figure it out and if you can defend well enough to tie everything together. On the Magic front, a lot of self-inflicted wounds in the fourth. I talked about Gary Harris fouling Damian Lillard on a three. Right after that play, Jonathan Isaac stepped out of bounds in the right corner. Just that classic negative step thing that you see all the time. Paolo Banchero took like a really tough transition three that I thought he settled forward, took a wide open catch and shoot three later that he made. He's been shooting the ball pretty well this season. Shot selection's a big piece there. The Pat Connaughton back screen on the inbounds play, that was just bad defense from Wendell Carter Jr. His number one responsibility in that situation is the basket, and he just wasn't doing his job. There was another play where Wendell Carter Jr. had a deep seal in the post, and Franz Wagner threw like a one-hand rifle pass that was just really difficult to grab. So, like, we're talking 5 pretty significant self-inflicted wounds there in the fourth quarter that took them out of any chance to win that game. Kind of typical for young teams, right? Like, they're going to struggle in those particular types of situations. I did want to talk about Franz Wagner for a second, though, because he had 29, 6, and 6 in this game and really had a lot of success picking the Bucks apart in pick and roll. He just is so big that he can get downhill and actually finish around Brook Lopez. There was a play where Wendell Carter Jr. rolled hard into Lopez and occupied him, which allowed Franz to get to his little floater in the lane. And then when Bobby Portis was in the game, they were blitzing and switching, and Franz was just killing him. Every time they blitz, he'd drop it off to Mo Wagner, and he'd get downhill and he'd make a play, right? Or if there were 2 plays in the second half where Portis had to switch out onto Franz, and Franz just cooked him one-on-one and got all the way to the basket for his little, hook shot that he takes over the top. Franz is playing really good basketball. It was fun watching him go to work against that team, because that's a team that has a lot of size in the Bucks. And so for a guy like him to, where his biggest advantage is size, to continue to thrive in that type of environment, I thought was really impressive. All right, moving on to the MVP ladder. So for those of you guys who missed it last week, we had Joel Embiid at number 1, Giannis Antetokounmpo at number 2, Tyrese Halliburton at number 3, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at number 4, Luka Doncic at number 5, Nikola Jokic at number 6, De'Aaron Fox at number 7, Jayson Tatum at number 8, LeBron James at number 9, and Kevin Durant at number 10. And like I said, I'm going to be doing this every Friday. Primarily, we're not going to do deep dives into every single player, but we're going to do mainly just descriptions of why I have made changes to the rankings. So 2 guys are dropping out of the list this week. First is LeBron. He averaged 24, 9 rebounds, and 11 assists this week, but they went 0-3 in the 3 games that LeBron played. He's still been pretty good on offense, although his jumper is cooled off. But my main issue with LeBron right now is just outside of the in-season tournament, he just hasn't given a shit about playing any defense. And we've talked a lot about this, but that low man responsibility is vitally important in any NBA defense, but it's especially important in this Laker defense that's doing so much blitzing and pick and roll. You just need a guy there that's really, really active, that's trying to make plays. And we've seen what it looks like when like Tyrese Halliburton didn't have a single turnover during the in-season tournament until suddenly LeBron blows up a play as a low man in pick and roll. Like, he is capable of being so devastating there. Totally understand, for the record, like, he's old. Got to find a way to conserve energy somewhere. LeBron's conserving energy on defense right now. I don't think he sees the regular season as that important. Totally fine, but the purpose of this list is to draw attention to players who are playing well within the confines of the regular season. So as of right now, I'm dropping LeBron off the list. Kevin Durant is the other guy I'm dropping off. His numbers are still super good. 32 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, still super efficient. But the Suns are in a free fall. They can't score the basketball. They've lost 7 of their last 10 games. They've been a bottom 5 offense in that span. And the biggest issues that I'm noticing are, one, they're running a ton of ISOs without being efficient with them. They run the 8th most ISOs in the league, except for everyone else above them is like right around a point per possession or more. And the Suns are down at 0.90 points per ISO. So they're running a lot of ISOs and they're not getting anything out of them relative to the rest of the league. They're also not generating enough threes. They're only generating 29 threes per game over this 10-game stretch, which is dead last in the NBA. And they never get out in transition. They get just 17 transition possessions per game, which ranks 28th in the NBA. So for right now, based on team success, dropping Kevin Durant off the list. All right, this week's MVP rankings for Hoops Tonight. Number 10, Jayson Tatum. He averaged 23, 7, and 5 last week. His scoring consistency has taken a hit. He scored 30 plus 5 times in his first 6 games, but he's done it just 5 times total in the last 20 games. And I was really disappointed in his inability to regain control of that Warriors game as things were going down the stretch. I know his ankle was tweaked early in the game, but I thought he had advantages, and I didn't think he exploited them as well as he could have. Number 9, Jalen Brunson, our first newcomer on the list this season. Last 10 games, Jalen Brunson, 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists, 49% from the field and 44% from 3. And the Knicks are now a top 10 offense. They are 16-11, and they have the 9th best record in basketball. Jalen is hooping his ass off. He's at number 9 in our MVP rankings. Number 8, Tyrese Halliburton drops all the way down. I think he was in 3rd last week. 16 points, 3 rebounds, and 12 assists. Really cooled off shooting the basketball everywhere, really, right now. 37% from the field. He's in the 20s from 3. Pacers went 1-4. Just like the Lakers, the Pacers have completely fallen apart since the in-season tournament. A clear indicator that there's a real emotional letdown after playing those super high-stakes games and then going into regular season basketball there. Number 7, another newcomer this week, Steph Curry. After straight up stealing the Celtics game with late game shot making, the Warriors are now 13-12 when Steph Curry plays, despite just a ridiculous amount of issues between main core players not playing well, between Draymond Green removing himself from the team with poor decision making, to a lot of young guys in the lineup. There's just a boatload of things going wrong with this team, and yet they've still been above 500 in a really difficult league on a really tough schedule because Steph Curry is the same old Steph Curry. 28 points per game on 65% true shooting. He's just floating things well enough for the Warriors to be able to survive until they can make a move to upgrade the roster. Number 6, Luka Doncic, 35, 11, and 9 in the last week, but the Mavs went 1-2, so I dropped him down a little bit. De'Aaron Fox, 30 at number 5. De'Aaron Fox, 30 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists per game in the last week, and the Kings went 2-1. Moved him up to number 5. Number 4, Nikola Jokic, 21, 10, and 8 in the last week, and the Nuggets went 2-1, with that one loss being the buzzer loss to the Thunder. The Toronto win the other night felt like a get-right game for Nikola Jokic. He went cold from 3 there for a little while. Remember, I was complaining about that, and I was specifically complaining about him not taking them anymore, which was frustrating. 3 for 5 against Toronto. I just think that that's a very, very important shot for Jokic to be considered the best player in the world. It's all of the things put together that makes, like, without that 3-point shot, he goes from being the most inevitable, unstoppable offensive player in the league to something less than that. And it's just an important element. I thought that was encouraging against Toronto. He had 31 points as well. Nikola Jokic up to number 4. Number 3, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 29 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists last week. The Thunder went 3-0, hits the game winner against Denver, hangs 31 on the red-hot Clippers that have been so good defensively lately. Just a great week for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I have him up at number 3. Number 2, Giannis. There was a weird game in there where he didn't play much that threw off his averages, but he still averaged 24, 12, and 8. Over the course of the last week, the Bucks went 4-0, so I moved him up to number 2. Actually, I think he was at number 2 last week. And then number 1, Joel Embiid. 42 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 assists in the last week. The Sixers go 3-1, lost to the Bulls, but the Bulls are playing really well, and they had just played the Sixers had just played a bunch of bad teams, which typically can kind of set your team up for some failure because you built some bad habits playing against bad teams, right? Here's the thing. For the Sixers fans and Embiid fans, because I had a lot of them complaining at me in the last 24 hours after our video yesterday. Do I hate the foul grifting? Yeah, I fucking despise it. But I don't blame Joel for that. I blame the league. And he's still been by far the best regular season player in the league this year. I've had him number 1 in my MVP list both weeks. I'm a huge believer in what Embiid is capable of. Everything about his foul grifting is a take about the NBA. It has nothing to do with Joel Embiid. All right, moving on to the mailbag. We've got a bunch of questions today. We're going to be going all over the place. First question. Could you see the Pelicans moving on from Zion, getting some quality players to surround Brandon Ingram instead? So here's the deal. It really just depends on what you can get back. Of course, you start making calls, but here's the thing. Like, Zion's career is not over. It looks bleak, but it's not over. And he can still get it together. And if he does get it together, he could potentially become the player that we all want him to become. So that's the risk. Like, when you send out Zion, you take a risk that he ends up figuring things out, right? And becoming a top-tier superstar, right? So for me, it's 100% about what you get back. If you can get back a significant upgrade in that front court to put alongside Herb Jones and Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Jonas Valanciunas, then by all means, you look into it. But it just 100% depends on what you can get back. You know what I mean? Like even if you look at a guy like Lauri Markkanen, for instance, I look at it and I'm like, okay, is Lauri good enough to make the Pelicans a championship contender? Like, I don't know. So it's like, I'm not even sure if that's enough. So at this point, I think the right decision is to just kind of hang tight on Zion for a little bit. But yeah, if we're still here about a year from now, then it becomes something that's a little more urgent. Next question from Eric. As of today, the Chicago Bulls have won 7 of their last 11 games. What has been the biggest factor of their recent success? Additionally, can you give me a quick analysis of Kobe White and talk about what has been working with his game? This is my 3rd NBA season watching you cover the league. Best NBA show out there by far. Thank you, Eric, and I sincerely appreciate you supporting the show. So, first of all, the Bulls are actually 8-3 in their last 11 games. The short answer is they're defending and rebounding really well. They're 6th in defensive rating over this span and 3rd in rebounding percentage, getting really good point of attack defense from guys like Ayo Dosunmu and Alex Caruso. DeMar DeRozan has kind of started to get it together after getting off to a rough start to the season. And then, Kobe White's he's popping. 24, 7, and 7 over this 11-game span. He is shooting 50% from the field, 47% from 3, and 83% from the line over that span. And it's really just a classic combination of downhill speed mixed with the in-between shot-making piece, specifically the pull-up 2-point shot and the pull-up 3-point shot. We talk a lot about this concept of like defending on your heels versus defending on your toes. And like if you're a pull-up shooter that has no threat to beat a guy off the dribble, he can press up and take the shot away. If you're a driving threat with no threat to knock down the pull-up jump shot, I can play back and I can try to bait you into pull-up jump shots. Kobe White, 4.3 restricted area attempts per game over his last 11 games, shooting 62%. That's like really, really good for a guard. And then he's 16 for 32 on pull-up threes over that span. That's 50%. And then 12 for 26 on pull-up twos, which is in the mid 40s. So he's just making all of his making his pull-up jump shots at a really high rate, and he's finishing at the rim really well, which is just going to make you really, really tough to guard. And then he's passing really well in pick and roll. He's got good role chemistry with Nikola Vucevic. He's got this like one-arm skip pass. He's got the size and the ability to palm the basketball, so he can pick up the dribble and rifle that one-arm pass across the court to the corner when they tag the roller. He's just playing really, really well. He honestly reminds me, this recent stretch, he reminds me a little bit of Devin Booker in some of his like versatile perimeter shot creation. The jump shot doesn't look like Devin Booker. It actually looks a little bit more like Anthony Simons in the sense that the release point is a little more compact, and he's like more of like a quick pop release versus Devin's got a little bit more of a drawn out release. But he's hooping, and the Bulls are hooping. They a lot of impressive wins over their last 11 as well, going into Philly and beating the Sixers, beating the Lakers the other night. The Bulls are playing some good basketball. Next question. Hi, Jason. Thanks for your videos as always. With how well Jalen Brunson has been playing, along with last year's playoffs, do you think he has shown us enough to put him into that tier of players who can be the best player on a championship team? I don't think it's impossible, but it's definitely a long shot. To me, what that means is you have to be really good at every other position. That's what I've talked about. Like if you can somehow get a really good three to slot between Barrett, Randall, and then Mitchell Robinson comes back next year, I'm looking at that and I'm like, yeah, maybe Jalen Brunson's not one of the top 15 players in the league, but if I have him and, Julius Randle playing at the level he's been playing in the last month, and let's just throw, let's say it's, Dorian Finney-Smith, like a guy that can guard on the perimeter and is like a really good, he's shooting over 40% from three this year. And then now RJ Barrett is like your point of attack guy in the backcourt next to Brunson. And I've got two really good point of attack guys. Mitchell Robinson, who was a really good playoff player for the Knicks last year. Randall is like your matchup attacker. Brunson, again, you wouldn't put them as a championship favorite, but you'd give them a puncher's chance if they were really well-rounded there. But again, like it's complicated because when people have this conversation, like, oh, is he good enough to be the best player on a championship team? Really, in terms of the guys that it's like, if I have this guy, I have a good chance to win, there's like a few of them in the entire league. So I don't think it's a shame to not have one of those guys. And if anything, that's why you don't do something stupid like go after Donovan Mitchell. If you're going to make an all-in trade, it needs to be for one of those guys. And until then, right now, it's better to make more like use of your assets in a smaller scale just to kind of keep this team relevant and do the best you can while maintaining your flexibility to make a move down the line. Hi, Jason. With how good Tyler Herro has been playing as of late, do you think Miami should stick with the group they have and make a run, or is there something else you would need to compete with the top teams in the East this year? As good as Tyler Herro's been playing, that specific archetype, that like kind of skinny perimeter shot creator that can tend to struggle in the physicality of the playoffs, not the guy that I'd be looking at there. I still think that the Heat should be making a move for a backcourt scorer. They're the kind of team that should be aggressively going after someone like Donovan Mitchell. Again, if you're a Heat fan, here's what you can't afford. To once again, via Jimmy and Bam and Eric Spoelstra, out-execute and outsmart teams and find yourself in the conference finals and just be outgunned again. It just can't happen anymore. You got to get them real firepower in the backcourt. Next question. Hey, Jason. Lauri Markkanen, in my opinion, is extremely underrated in a league with lots of guards who play ISO. Lauri has very valuable off-ball skills with a reasonable contract. If you went to the Kings, where would that put them in your contenders list? Man, he'd be great with the Kings. I love the emphasis on the off-ball scoring piece. What's so valuable about off-ball scoring is it doesn't disrupt rhythm for any of the other players on the floor. So we talk about this a lot with Steph Curry, but it's like, the ability to be such a threat off the ball actually just makes things easier for everybody because they gain rhythm by operating in more space with the ball in their hands, right? And like when you look at a team like, the two teams that I look at for Lauri Markkanen that would make them contenders are the Kings and the Thunder. The Pacers, I wouldn't necessarily say they'd be a contender, but they'd certainly become way more interesting. But these are all teams that are a little small on that front line that need a big forward to put next to their center. In this case, Harrison Barnes is too small for that position. Now, with play finishing, think of it pretty basically like this. If I all these openings occur when I'm an on-ball shot creator, right? So for instance, like if I'm looking to be aggressive, there are guys digging down off the weak side. If I'm a really good pick and roll player, I'm going to like get a guy tagging the roller in a lot of cases or defending the action 3-on-2. What you end up getting is a lot of these advantage situations on the backside. And like a lot of times you kick it out to a guy and like he's either like good at shooting but can't put the ball on the floor, or put the ball on the floor but can't shoot, or like maybe he's a ball stopper and he's too slow to make decisions, or like just bad in general at attacking closeouts and making reads. Like whatever the situation is, that limitation can bog down an offense, even if your upfront guys are your play initiators are doing a great job. And so having a guy like Lauri Markkanen that's like, oh, you dug down and I made the kickout pass, he's going to make it like 45% of the time or whatever, or like chase him off the line. He's capable of high level closeout attacking and like really squeezing points out of those types of situations. So most importantly, like I talk about the low man responsibilities in terms of defensive rebounding and help side, and like just having a much bigger, stronger athlete in that position could go a long way towards fortifying any defense as well, especially in an off-ball role like that. So again, the Kings are a great example of a team that should be looking at him. Again, the Thunder as well. And with those two teams in particular, because De'Aaron Fox is playing at a superstar level this year, because Malik Monk has proven himself as a playoff shot creator, because of what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can do and what Jalen Williams has been accomplishing, those teams have the top end potential to where Lauri Markkanen would be slotted properly as a play finisher where he would be most impactful. Next question. What do you think about a Lakers trade concerning D'Angelo Russell and Jackson Hayes for Alex Caruso and Andre Drummond, another contract filler, as well as Rui Hachimura to the Nets for Dorian Finney-Smith? Hypothetically, what would be the ceiling for the Lakers if they did this? Thank you. So this is an example of what I would consider to be a slam dunk, home run, touchdown, whatever the fuck you want to call it, like perfect trade deadline for the Lakers. And the reason why I say that is I've been preaching this all season. Austin's your 1, LeBron's your 4, AD's your 5. And you need upgrades at the 2 and 3, and you need a playoff playable backup center. Christian Wood and Jackson Hayes have both had moments this year, but I don't think either of them looks like a guy that could hold down a playoff unit. So what you're pitching to me is Alex Caruso, big upgrade at the 2, Dorian Finney-Smith, big upgrade at the 3, Andre Drummond, big upgrade at the backup center. So like, yeah, that'd be great. The problem is like to get Chicago to do a deal like that, you'd have to at least add 1 first-round pick, and there's going to be a lot of suitors for Alex Caruso. And so I don't necessarily think that's super realistic, but if that did go down, it would be a home run for the Lakers. Next question. After watching Carson break down Lauri Markkanen's game, I believe he would be the perfect trade for the Warriors. With Steph's gravity and Lauri's ability to cut, reposition, screen, and mismatch hunt, I think he's the perfect fit to the Golden State offense. So Jason, as GM of the Warriors, what would you be willing to trade for that perfect complementary piece to Steph's game? And as the GM of the Jazz, what would you be asking for Lauri? So I would agree that Lauri Markkanen's the cleanest and most obvious fit for the Warriors front line. Obviously, he's not as good defensively as a guy like Pascal Siakam, but I think in terms of overall fit, he'd be a better offensive weapon for the Warriors. Here's the problem. He's going to be the most sought-after piece at this deadline, him and Donovan Mitchell probably, if either are even going to be made available for trade. You know what I mean? Like the reason why I've been talking about Pascal Siakam is because I find him achievable. He's on an expiring contract. It just feels like a certainty that Toronto will trade him. In general, I think especially if Lauri and Donovan Mitchell hit the market, all of the big suitors are going to be going after those guys, which might open up a window for a team like Golden State to slide in and get Pascal Siakam, right? Now, the question is, how could you get Lauri? It's pretty simple. You would need a team like Utah to put a whole lot of value on Jonathan Kuminga. And again, I really like Jonathan Kuminga. I'm just not sure if that's enough. And like, what if it gets tricky and they're like, oh, we want Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski or something like that. Then it becomes a little more tricky because Podziemski's been so important to them over the course of the last couple of weeks. And you would need the salary filler of Chris Paul, and you're ditching 2 guards in that situation, right? So it's not so much whether or not Lauri is the best fit, because I believe he is. It's more just price. To me, I've been targeting Siakam because I see him as the most achievable option for the Warriors at this deadline. Next question. I'm a Warriors fan, and I want to know if Pascal is really the answer in a trade. He isn't a great three-point shooter, and I fear it will lead to spacing issues. What does Pascal offer to the team to negate that issue? Would someone like the Lakers do the exact same strategy with Draymond and Pascal on the floor, or would it be different? Thanks, Jason. I love watching your show. Keep up the good work. So this is the thing. Specifically with the Warriors, I don't find three-point shooting as important. Obviously, a three-point shot would go a long way with someone like Siakam. As Sam Esfandiari in our show put so well the other day, he talked about how, like, hey, like, if Siakam was a reliable three-point shooter, he'd be like Kevin Durant light. And the reason why he says that is because Pascal Siakam is an excellent off-ball defender. He's an excellent on-ball defender. He's an excellent shot creator in just about every way, aside from his consistency from the perimeter. And this is where I point to a guy like Andre Iguodala. How is it that the Warriors were able to succeed all those years with Andre Iguodala on the floor alongside Draymond Green? And a big part of it was, first of all, Iguodala was getting such high-quality shots, and he had so much big-game experience, he was comfortable taking them. And that's the thing. I actually do think Siakam would shoot well for the Warriors, just based on the quality of the shots he would get, just him being confident and comfortable in that situation. 2, inverted spacing. When you've got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson chasing, running around on the perimeter, and guys having to show over the top of screens, like a big part of it would be you'd need Wiggins to regain his form. But I actually do think Wiggins will get right at some point this season, especially if they trade Kuminga and open up his rotation minutes more. But what I look at it as is you're going to get a lot of 4-on-3s. And in those 4-on-3s, it's actually more important to have guys that are athletes that can cut along the baseline and that are good at dribble shooting and passing to quickly capitalize on that advantage situation. Then the second piece of it is the two-man game with Steph. Not since KD have they had a guy that they can really run two-man game with Steph in terms of like getting switches and attacking matchups. And Pascal Siakam has been one of the best post-up players in the league this year. And so having the ability to get Steph's defender switched onto him and take him onto the block, I just think all the other offensive benefits would greatly outweigh any sort of shooting inconsistency from Siakam. Hey, Jason, I have a mailbag question for you. What do you think about a Rui for Buddy Hield trade? Helps both teams tremendously and fills a need each team needs desperately. I know it's not going to solve all of Indy's problems, but it definitely can help. As for the Lakers, they're giving up a better player, but as you've said in previous shows, there's a logjam at Rui's position since LeBron and him have a similar archetype. Maybe Indy could include a pick or some other assets or players. Just wondering what you think about it. So here's the thing. I agree with you from the standpoint of fit that if you traded both guys for each other, it would make both teams better because one, Rui's a big upgrade over, I'm blanking on his name now, the power forward for the, Obi Toppin, excuse me. I'm terrible with names in general. But it's an upgrade on Obi Toppin at the forward position, bigger, stronger player, better help defender, just a better player. And Buddy Hield, as an off-ball shooter, is just a better fit in a starting lineup alongside a guy like LeBron James and Anthony Davis than a guy like, D'Angelo Russell in a 2-spot next to Austin Reeves or something like that, right? Here's the problem. Like, 2 things. One, it would be a poor use of Rui as an asset because Rui's just a better asset than Buddy, and you just should be targeting higher level players. 2, Buddy is another skill guard. And we've already seen with the Lakers what it looks like when you have Austin Reeves next to another skill guard or D'Angelo Russell next to another skill guard. So to me, it's not so much that I don't think it would help either team, because of course it would. It just would be a poor use of the asset for the Lakers, and they should be targeting an athlete for that position instead. All right, last question. Jason, mailbag question. I'm going to keep trying to get one in there. I'm a Nuggets fan, and it seems like the Nuggets are just kind of mid right now. Murray has been typical regular season Murray, injuries and up and down play. Jokic doesn't seem very focused and has been a bit up and down rather than consistently dominant. Haven't seen that from him since 2019. I know you were talking about Jokic's jump shot, but do you think there's something else going on? Are they satisfied with winning the chip and not putting in the effort they should? Is there maybe some locker room stuff or personal stuff going on that you've heard whispers about? I genuinely think once the playoffs come around, we'll be fine, but I'm starting to get a bit worried. If you were a Nuggets fan, would you be worried? Thoughts? I am completely and utterly not worried about the Nuggets. I still think they are by far the safest bet to win the title this year. By far is a stretch, but I think they're clearly and discernibly the safest bet to win the title this year. This stretch actually reminds me a lot of the stretch they had before the playoffs last year. This is a team that like knows they're capable of reaching a certain ceiling, and they've demonstrated ability to ramp up when they get to the postseason. The only thing I'd be worried about with Denver that would take them off of my number one spot in my contenders is a season-ending injury to one of their core 5 guys. Like if Jamal Murray gets hurt, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope gets hurt, Michael Porter Jr. gets hurt, or Aaron Gordon gets hurt, any one of them, I would drop them from that number one spot because I do think the downgrade to the next option is just a huge downgrade for any single one of those positions. But if they're healthy, when they could be, 45-37 and be the 5 seed in the West, and I'd pick them to win the league. Like it's just what I would do because that's how much I trust their defense. And in general, I would imagine that during the ebb and flow of the standings, if they ever get to a point where they lose too many games, they'll lock back in and they'll get back to winning. I'm just entirely not worried about it. All right, guys, that's all I have for this weekend. We will be back on Monday for 2 Christmas Day instant reactions. We're going to go after the Warriors game and after the Lakers game, 2 live videos on YouTube. Then Tuesday, we're going to break down the rest of the Christmas Day games. And then Wednesday, we've got Jovan Buha coming on the show for our Laker deep dive that we do every 2 weeks or so. So I appreciate you guys for supporting the show. I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy the holiday and you get to spend some time with your families. I'm very, very thankful for you guys, and I look forward to seeing you all on Monday.